What?
A friendship group?
Well, that's what it's called. Your friendship group.
What?
What do you call it?
Like,
what would you call your group of friends?
My friends.
Okay, fine. I'll redo it.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down to Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my co-hosts, Ash Funnyface Spencer.
Hi, y'all.
And Big D Dick Ebert.
Nice, Beaver.
And each week we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatthemovies.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. That's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all the information and past episodes at shatontv.com. And finally, to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatthemovies.com/Twitch, where you play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live on Twitch. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing today?
Gene, this week I'm very excited to go back to one of the movies that was in my mind when Roger and I created this way back in what was it now? Not 2016.
16, yeah.
2016, August. Wow. Back then, each of us created like a top 10 list of movies that we thought would be a must include. When we were doing the first episode, we eventually did Big. This was on both of our lists. So I was so excited when Joe from Asheville decided to commission the 1988 crime comedy, The Naked Gun, from the Files of Police Squad.
When they ran in and said, "Hey, Shatters, I like to start out by saying that I really enjoy you guys. I work alone. I'm a luthier, so it's always nice to have chatter in the background, especially when it sounds like conversations I'd have with my friends. Thank you for the many, many hours of content you've provided us. It must be an extraordinary amount of work, and I appreciate it. It's time for me to pitch in and pony up, which brings me to this commission. I can't put a finger on when I first saw The Naked Gun. It's just always been there. For years, it was the comedy by which I judged all comedies. I got a copy of it on VHS for my birthday. Can't remember which one, 10, 11, so 89 or 90. And I watched it multiple times a week for what must have been an annoyingly long period of time. It featured at sleepovers and parties and was a regular on our TV during mealtimes at home. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say I've seen it 100 times. It's possible. The movie is deeply ingrained in my psyche. It's a Zucker Brothers movie, so of course the jokes are heavy-handed at times, but they're handled so well that it doesn't really matter. Just about every scene is ridiculous and hilarious. From the attempted murder of Norberg to driving lessons to impersonations of Italian opera singers, The Naked Gun just doesn't disappoint. It's true. Everyone should have a friend like Frank. All in all, it's a 1.5 movie in my book. Flawed for sure, but still much better than average. Thanks again for doing this one, and more will follow. I'm going back through your old catalog, and every time Gene or Ash mentions either New Orleans, Ohio, or Arizona, I throw $5 in a jar for my next commission. Shouldn't take too long. Love, peace, and cash. Joe from Asheville.
I think Joe's commission highlights how specialized children's entertainment has become in 2021. Kids today, they watch shit that's made for kids, and that's pretty much all they watch. To think about a 10-year-old getting The Naked Gun on VHS for their birthday, it's hilarious. We had nothing to watch in the 80s. We had nothing of our own.
I mean, in New Orleans, it was kind of ridiculous because we had Saved by the Bell. I mean, that was something you could watch, I guess. And the one that came on after Saved by the Bell, do you remember that one about the band on the beach? Remember that
Band
show?
on the Beach?
Yeah. It was the one that came on after Saved by the Bell. It's like California Dreams or something like that.
Josie and the Pussycats?
No, I think it's called California Dreams. But in New Orleans, the people there in New Orleans watched it often. But what about you, Gene? When you moved back to Arizona, was that something you watched too?
Yeah, I haven't watched The Naked Gun since I got back to Arizona
Mm,
until this viewing. And I don't think I watched it at all when I lived in Ohio.
yeah.
But The Naked Gun is a 1988 crime comedy directed by David Zucker and released by Paramount Pictures. The film is a continuation of the television series Police Squad and stars Leslie Nielsen as the bumbling police lieutenant Frank Drebin. Priscilla Presley, Ricardo Montalban, George Kennedy, and O.J. Simpson also star in supporting roles. Released on December 2nd, 1988, The Naked Gun was a critical and commercial success, which led to 2 sequels, The Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear, which came out in 1991, and The Naked Gun 33 1/3, The Final Insult, which was released in 1994. Big D, Ash, we always ask what your memories are of the movie we're covering. This week it's The Naked Gun. Big D, we'll start with you.
So one of the first comedies I can remember as a kid watching was Airplane. It is the greatest disaster parody ever. You get the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the cockpit and the pilot's asking, Joey, have you ever seen a grown man naked? Or I've picked the wrong week to stop sniffing glue. It's inappropriate humor that's delivered with a straight face by veteran actors. As a kid, I was like, what is going on here? I didn't even know what to think. I just knew it was funny. And when Naked Gun came out, it was more of the same. I instantly loved it. There's memorable lines throughout this entire movie. Nothing to see here, people. Keep moving. Keep moving. Even today, in 2022, you see that meme. And it brings me back to the day that I first saw this movie. And it made a big impact on what I think is funny as a kid and as an adult today.
Absolutely, Big D. This movie, when I was a kid, was separated into like 2 parts. It was jokes that I got as a kid, the slapstick and stuff. And then there was jokes that the rest of my family got that I knew were funny because they got it. So my family rented this from the local video store. I remember seeing the box. I thought it was going to be some action movie, right? It's a guy with a badge and a gun on a bullet. I'm like, yeah. We watched this movie and the rest of my family was in tears with laughter. And it made me so happy to see them happy that I've always had positive associations with The Naked Gun.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing this, but I don't remember much about it. I was 5 when it came out, and I remember it being rented and kind of watched often in the early 90s. But if I'm thinking about satire from, my childhood, I usually think about Mel Brooks, or Hot Shots was a big thing for me, especially Hot Shots Part 2. It was, a really huge favorite of mine. But I was excited to see this as an adult because just like you, Gene, I remember not getting the references the first time around. I didn't understand what the jokes were. And I was hoping I would pick up on them. Some of them, I will say, were even still a little dated for me. But the political shit, pretty funny. So I'm glad I got to see it again.
Well, Big D, I think it's time to hear one of the best trailers in comedy history. Let's roll.
In this city, there's crime on every street. But one man has seen enough. He's Lieutenant Frank Drebin.
Whatever scum did this, not one man on this force will rest for 1 minute until he's behind bars. Now let's grab a bite to eat.
He's a good cop who's having a bad day. His best friend...
Everyone should have a friend like you.
...is in a coma.
As soon as Norberg is better, he's welcome back at Police Squad. But I wouldn't wait until the last minute to fill out those organ donor cards.
His girlfriend asked him to look her up.
Nice beaver.
Thank you. I just had it stuffed.
Let me help you with that.
And his city is in the hands of a master criminal with a sinister plan.
I must kill the queen.
How can any police story contain this much action? This much romance?
I like cops.
Or this much baseball? Starring Leslie Nielsen, a cop who's always on the alert. Mikhail Gorbachev.
I knew it.
Queen Elizabeth, everyone's favorite queen. Priscilla Presley, a woman who really cooks.
How hot and wet do you like it?
Ricardo Montalban.
Frank.
You're both right.
George Kennedy, the partner with an appetite for danger. O.J. Simpson, as you've never seen him before. And Reggie Jackson in his first dramatic role. in a movie so big, it had to be filmed in color. The Naked Gun, from the files of Police Squad.
See you then.
While vacationing in Beirut, Police Squad Lieutenant Frank Drebin disrupts a conference of America's enemies who are trying to conceive a terrorist plan to humiliate the United States. In Los Angeles, Drebin's partner Norberg attempts to bust a heroin operation at the docks and is shot by the dock owner Vincent Ludwig's henchmen. After being briefed by Captain Ed Hawken, Drebin receives cryptic clues from Norberg in the hospital. Police Squad is put in charge of security for the visit of Queen Elizabeth II to Los Angeles, and Drebin is given 24 hours to clear Norberg of drug allegations. So modern movies are super careful not to call out real countries as enemies. We're always fighting aliens or like rogue factions like Crimson Jihad or like fictional nations, but not here. The Naked Gun, it opens up taking aim at bad boys of the 80s like Muammar Gaddafi and Yasser Arafat, Fidel Castro, Mikhail Gorbachev, and my personal childhood boogeyman, Ayatollah Khomeini. So this is a joke that probably doesn't hold up for younger generations. Like Sarah had no idea who these people were, but it's such an inside joke for old folks. Like I was dying already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this movie had a ton of balls from the get-go. I think that what was really great is they take like an all or up for grabs approach. It's not like today where like just the Arab leaders are the bad guys or just the communist leaders are the bad guys. It was like all the bad guys. And it reminded me of the controversy that surrounded that movie, The Interview with James Franco and Seth Rogen. Not a great movie, but it was kind of ridiculous how worried people were about the backlash against this film. And are they going to kill Seth Rogen? Which they didn't. But I thought it was perfect. And y'all, when Gorbachev's birthmark turned out to be fake, like just absolutely perfect way to open this movie. And I was cracking up laughing.
But the fucking jokes, they're nonstop. It is like a machine gun. It keeps coming. It goofy physical gags. It is one right after another. There's no break. Some of them work. A lot of them are predictable, but I didn't care. They keep dishing it out and they keep trying. It's like one of those, if you don't succeed at first, keep trying. They're just throwing everything at the wall in this opening credits. You get that siren that's going through and you think it's going to be a typical, an opening with the credits. No, it goes into a locker room, a family's house. It is crazy. And everything in this movie hinges on the credibility and delivery of the jokes, the timing of everything. A lot of comedies rush things. Hey, let's get through it. Let's get through it. Here, they take a breath. They let the jokes breathe. When OJ kicks in that door on the I Love You boat, and the whole group of bad guys, we get like just a range of bad guys. They all slowly take aim. Some clean their guns. Some load them. They all aim. He comes in the door and we get a nonstop set of, he touches the hot stove, his hand in the window. It just keeps going and keeps going. And the movie just lets it breathe. And I found myself respecting it and laughing because they were just going to take their time with all of these jokes.
I don't know what movie you were watching that thought that the jokes were breathing. Because I think that, yes, it's an important point that in comedy, like, things need to breathe, but like nothing fucking breathes in this movie. It's like so stacked, like one and then another and then another and another. And I'll be totally honest, I was exhausted about 15 minutes in because it was jumping all over the place. And then I realized the genius of this, which is that they planned for you to be able to get up and go get your popcorn or go to the bathroom or make out in the back of the theater and then come back and still be laughing because the gags move so quickly and like they're not interconnected at all. Like nothing is like a long form, like return gag, like, like Family Guy, how everything's like callback jokes. Like that is not what this movie is. And so instead, the point was not to get them all, but just, take a few here, a few there. The ones that don't work, just let them fall off. It's like they just filmed an entire workshop. Like they just workshopped the movie while filming it and left everything in.
I think what Big D meant by the breathing thing is that the jokes are allowed to have longevity, right? So I think there's pressure now when people are making a movie. They're like, I'm going to make this joke and then move on to the next thing.
Exactly.
But OJ's like sitting there fucking like bumbling around in that ship. It's like a full minute that he's just going through and they layer them on top of each other. And I started this movie sneering at the juvenile humor. Like I saw The World Leaders. I thought that was funny. And then, Frank fighting them all. I was like, this is kind of tasteless. It's tacky. It's so stupid. And then we get the whole dock scene and it's stupid. But then something happened. I cracked under the weight of the jokes. Like they hit me with so many that I had to stop fighting it. Exactly. And Roger Ebert about The Naked Gun, he said, you laugh and then you laugh at yourself for laughing. And that's totally true, because once that first chuckle came in, and it was exactly Big D, as you said, it's O.J. Simpson kicks, he winds up the typical cop thing when he's going to kick the door in. He gets his leg stuck, and I chuckled. It was just like a little crack of a see? Yeah. And then I thought about why I laughed, and the reason I laughed was the guy got his leg stuck in a door. And then analyzing that joke made its cheapness funny, because I was laughing at myself for being so dumb that I would laugh at that. And then you're just in a cycle and you're done.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I remember being a kid, you talked about like seeing the box of this movie. And I remember being so confused by the title, like The Naked Gun. Like as a kid, I didn't know what that meant. I thought it meant like it was like a gun without a silencer, or like it was a gun that was like really cool. And as an adult, like this title's hilarious. And, you know, originally they wanted to call it Police Academy. They couldn't. So they chose The Naked Gun. And one of my favorite quotes that I've read while doing research is like, the reason why they chose is because they said the promise was more than they could ever deliver. And it's so dumb, but like it's insane. It's insanely charming that this is what they wound up doing.
And I think this is one of the movies like Airplane. As a kid, you watch it and think the situations are funny, but the jokes are very adult. Whether it's sniffing glue or it's here, you get the heroin, Frank, heroin. You got to give me a little time for that. They're very adult jokes that you can watch this on multiple layers. I enjoyed it as a kid. I enjoyed it today.
Yeah, but you mentioned OJ, and it was so weird to see him in this movie. Like, he's so young. I didn't realize that he was handsome at some point, and like he really was. Like, he was slightly good looking. Yes,
at
point of order,
point?
Gene. Yeah,
he's good looking.
Like, I think he was always good looking.
Always.
I don't know. I guess like once like he murdered his wife in cold blood, like he wasn't quite so sexy.
That was later.
Objectively, though. Objectively.
I don't know. I mean, he wasn't a crazy murdering asshole by this point either. And it just made me like really uncomfortable every time he was on the screen. And I don't know if I was alone in that, but you know who didn't make me uncomfortable? Weird Al Yankovic. It was so classic of this time for him to be in this movie. And apparently, like, his dream, because he was a huge fan of the TV show, his dream was to be in this. So they wrote like this whole cameo in. And the guy used to go in the Hawaiian shirt he wears in the movie, that same shirt. He used to put it on, and he used to take his girls that he wanted to go out with to the movie. They had no idea he was in it. And then his cameo would just show up, and he said, and I quote, that they would flip out. And like, I'm like, dude, this is how Weird Al Yankovic got laid in the late 80s.
Oh, yeah.
I have a hard time believing Weird Al ever had to work to get laid, because one, he has big dick energy.
No.
And two, the man doesn't age. Like, he looks the same as he did in the 80s.
I don't think you can ever use the words big dick energy in a same sentence with a guy who plays an accordion.
That's exactly it. It's because he plays an accordion. Like, he goes out there with an accordion. He knows he's got some. He knows he knows he's packing.
No. I think he's probably as good in bed as like maybe Carrot Top. They're both like wild. They're all over the place. There's props,
Gallagher.
and at the end, you're like, "What just happened?" And they're laughing. They're gone.
One, that sounds awesome. And two, I don't think big dick energy means you're good in bed. It just means you have big dick energy.
No.
I'm like Pete Davidson has big dick energy.
He's got huge. He's got like,
like Pete Davidson has big dick
sausage,
energy.
big dick energy.
You
But
know.
also, he's terrible in bed.
I don't know. I bet you he's pretty good in
but
bed.
I think he's pretty good. I think he would be great in bed.
He likes to snuggle and fall asleep. I guarantee.
No. But Ash, I'm going to use my Shat the Movies knowledge from my history here. Do you know that OJ was up for the role of the Terminator, and he didn't get it because they said he's too nice? People won't believe that he could be a robot killer. And again, I could be wrong, but that's what my memory is telling me.
Wow.
Let's think about that for a second, though. If you are going to send a robot killer back in time and make them look like a human so that nobody knows they're a robot killer, why would you have them look scary?
Yeah.
You'd want them to look like a friendly guy.
Yeah.
But Ash, I remembered OJ being in this movie like a whole lot more. when I watched it this time, I fully expected him to like be in the hospital for a little while, and then I thought he and Frank were like together throughout the movie. And it turns out he's got like 3 minutes of screen time.
He's in the sequels though, right?
Oh, maybe that's what it was.
Like, I think I'm remember Naked Gun 3.4 quarters or whatever the name of the sequel is.
33
right?
and a third.
3 1/3, yeah. I think in one of them, 2.5 or that one, he's got to have more of a role because I remember scenes of him like in a tan suit, and then like walking into rooms together, like very much like Lethal Weapon style.
Okay, that makes more sense. Well, Frank visits Ludwig and reveals Norberg is still alive. Ludwig's assistant, Jane Spencer, falls in love with Drebin, unaware of her employer's illegal activities. Ludwig accepts a $20 million contract to assassinate the Queen using a hypnotized assassin. When Drebin stops an assassination attempt on Norberg, a hypnotized doctor escapes but ends up writing a ballistic missile into a fireworks store, leaving the assassination motive unknown. So in this part of the movie, we get to meet Ludwig, played by Ricardo Montalban. And I'm not sure I appreciate the Naked Gun for the same reasons others do. So I'm going to ask for some clarity here. To me, Ricardo Montalban and Leslie Nielsen are the real comedy of the Naked Gun because they play their characters so straight. Like, both guys know the joke is coming and they time it perfectly, but they bring every ounce of gravity as a dramatic actor would bring. And I would argue that the times when Leslie Nielsen deviated from this formula, like when he would smell something weird or get bonked in the head and he'd make a goofy face, actually detracted from the film. I would have liked it if he just played it perfectly straight.
I think it works because they were serious actors. They deliver the lines with a serious gravitas. Like, they don't realize what movie they're in. Leslie Nielsen, nominated for Primetime Emmy. Ricardo Montalban won a Primetime Emmy. So when they're giving you the side eye, or they're giving some exposition about just the ridiculous story that's going on, it works because they're so serious.
Yeah, when Frank is visiting Ludwig, you almost feel like Leslie Nielsen went into Ricardo Montalban's actual office and was just fucking shit up, and Ricardo Montalban is just trying to get through it with him. You know, it's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same reason why in a show like Arrested Development, like the mom and Michael are the hardest roles in that show to play because everybody else is an absolute shit show and they have to play these straight roles. You know, you've got Jessica Walter who delivers those great lines that are so deadpan where, you know, she's like, I don't have a favorite child. And then they cut to another equally deadpan delivered line where it's like, I'm really not fond of Job. Like, you know, like it's just, it's so funny. And I think that Nielsen's like attention to detail is what makes his role so iconic because he's trying to really show that boring, like serious cop that's so ultra serious. He's a joke and he's this lifer and he lives to solve crime. And that's why he can't have real relationships because his relationships with the streets. And, you know, it makes every part of this movie. It's why the satire is so smart. And when we realize that Nielsen's in on the joke, the movie like loses all of its steam.
And we complain all the time about the montages and how they're used and how ridiculous they are. We get our first anti-montage parody montage. This dating montage on the beach to the Hermits. Come on, and I'm feeling fine. And they're going on dates and they're running down the beach and they got cotton candy. And zoinks, we're shooting mustard at the guy in the park selling hot dogs. Yay, we're running through the surf. We're clotheslining people. And they finally do that scene where they're coming out of a movie laughing their ass off. They're just yucking it up. And it's Platoon. This is the first time as a kid I became aware of what a montage was. And ever since then, every time we get a montage, I think back to Frank and Jane coming out of that movie laughing.
Well, yeah. And like what other montage is kicked off by the most amazing sight gag maybe of any film that we've covered where he's like, I practice safe sex. And she's like, so do I. And then they're in full body condoms, like even with the little pointy thing.
Yeah, the reservoir tip. It's a reservoir
on
tip.
The reservoir tip. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it is.
You got to pinch it. So when you ejaculate, it fills up that spot and doesn't rupture the condom.
Huh. Okay. So the reservoir tip, even being on their head, like some giant, pointy hats. I mean, guys, I lost it. I laughed out loud so hard. And like Eugene, this was the moment I cracked. Like I was like, oh, this is amusing, right? This is funny. And then when they get together and it's like that, like two balloons rubbing against each other, like this movie's so fucking funny, y'all.
First of all, women have so many secrets about all their hygiene products and all specific names for things, and like the applicator and the Tampax Pearl and the stringy thingy. And I'm so glad that we just have our one.
It's real official though. The stringy thingy.
What is it called?
The string.
Thank you.
But not the string. I don't go, guys. I need to change my tampon. Let me grab my stringy thingy. Like no one says that.
Please, madam, allow me. But we have our one thing. It's the reservoir tip. That's the only special thing that we have our secret word for.
I just like the fact that Big D just tried to make a scientific argument that he comes so hard if the reservoir tip isn't pinched, it's going to burst.
I don't think it's just that it's going to burst. I think if it's flush against the tip of your penis, the semen will flow back through the condom towards your body. I don't think it's going to blow up. It's not like Superman fucked it.
Right, but he was like, so the condom doesn't break.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the quantity of my ejaculant, but I'm saying there's some PSI behind it. I'd probably get some good distance.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like I want an experiment done.
I was once having a girl in college skiing. Okay, with me and another guy.
I thought that was the sexual position, the way you were moving your arms.
Like the two hands.
Her legs above your head?
You're skiing. And I actually shot over her shoulder and hit my friend. And he goes, oh, you hit me. And that ended the evening. But,
Wait, you weren't actually skiing. It was a sexual
No,
position.
it was a sexual thing. Yeah, we were on either side. And she had let's just say a ski pole in either hand. And she was doing this. And I shot it over her shoulder and got my friend.
Okay, is that what that's called? Is skiing? I
think that's what I've called it.
Why? What does this
like
motion have to do with skiing?
You're skiing.
Right, but you're not stroking backwards. You're stroking side to side.
I'm getting some real Silicon Valley flashbacks now.
Oh my god! Yeah.
I didn't know what a condom was the first time I saw this movie. I had no idea. So this joke was beyond me. I was so confused. But I remember when I did find out what condoms were, I really wanted to get my hands on one, and not in a skiing fashion, but just get my hands on one. And I was at a friend's house, and their dad had like his condom stash in the master bedroom closet. And so, like, of course, we're fucking gross teenagers. And so what do? We go, we get them. And it was supposed to be to just look at them. And so if anybody asks me if I've ever stolen anything in my life, yes. I stole a condom once from a dude's closet.
So, Gene, I have a test here for you. Ash won't know this, but she might with Tom. If you unroll a condom all the way, what's at the very bottom?
If you unroll a condom all the way, what's at the very bottom? You mean the part where the base of your penis would be?
I've heard rumors there's serial numbers down there, so you can tell the batch. Have you ever seen that?
I feel like that would compromise the integrity of the latex to print something on it.
I don't know. We'll have to see.
Oh, it's not like impressed upon it.
No.
It's printed on it. It's a sublimation.
Yeah, sublimation. If you're out there and you roll them all the way down to the base, please tell us if that exists.
I don't think I've ever like rolled them down to the base and then examined them.
Yeah.
But I am fascinated and have always been fascinated with the way different people dispose of their condoms, because for years, I would say a decade easily, I would tie it off and flush it down the toilet. Yeah. I thought that was what you were supposed to do with condoms.
No.
Yeah. And then I had another encounter with a person who would just tie them off and put them in their nightstand drawer and then like get rid of them later, which I thought was also very weird. And now I'm squarely, I'd say for the last decade, like a throw it in the trash person, like a fucking human being.
Yeah. Like a normal fucking person.
Yeah. Okay, I think we've been on this joke long enough. And speaking of which, certain comedians like Adam Sandler, they get a lot of shit for committing to a joke far longer than the audience will allow. And I'll be the first one to say that I stopped watching Saturday Night Live because the skits would go on too long. Like always. Like they have a funny premise. It needs a minute or 90 seconds and then get off of it. And they just keep going. I appreciate that. Like when Frank is mic'd up and he goes for a pee, we all see it coming. Like he puts the mic on, he goes to the bathroom, like, oh, everyone's going to hear him peeing. but it's what happens during the pee that makes it funny. It's why this movie is more intelligent than you would note at face value. Like first he's leaning on the wall and he's like kind of convulsing and shaking. And then they cut back to the other room and you hear the sound of peeing, which is, it's okay, but it's the obvious gag. And then you hear, whoops, uh-oh. And you're left to wonder, like, what happened? Like, what was the whoops and uh-oh all about? And I tried this out. I played it again with no video, just listening to the audio of it. It's still funny.
Yeah, but isn't he like Moon River?
See, that part. That part I don't think is funny.
No, but
that part doesn't work for me. The part that works for me is the part that I have to that I'm not expecting. You expect him to do this singing thing. It's Tom Hanks in fucking League of Their Own,
Okay, but I did not expect the little subtle throwaway lines that he gives. At the beginning of the press conference, we have the police chief out there introducing the idea that the Queen's coming to visit. And he's like, it's our job here, police squad, to defend the Queen. For no matter how ridiculous the idea of having a queen is, we must be respectful. That shit's great.
Yeah, I mean, this one's good, but if we're going to talk about like the long joke that maybe could have gone on too long, but is really funny, it's Jane walking through that hall trying to be all sexy, and you've got like the voiceover of him talking about how good she looks, and she keeps like running into the walls, and then like she'll like kind of look back and give him a look, and then she like bumps into it and is like, oh shit. Like, I mean, that was the one that I thought was really fucking funny.
I felt like Priscilla Presley was completely out of her league in this movie, though. Like, you're around some really funny, good actors, and Priscilla Presley's just like there, but her playing off falling down the stairs or running into things, it was so like TV comedy level to me.
Well, I think one of the best examples of when this movie does get it right, if maybe she isn't it, when it does get it right, is this driver's ed sequence, which our commissioner mentioned in his letter. Because like you're saying, Gene, like it's predictable. You know, the second he looks up and it says a teen driver, you know that she's going to drive slow. You know that she's going to be given directions about signaling when she needs to cut in front of trying to get, away from the bad guys or chasing them. But it still works. Like the jokes are still funny enough. And then this movie does what it does best, which is it gives you something on top of all of those things. And that is this description, play by play, on how to flip the guy off. Like it's hilarious. And when this movie is allowed to breathe in a joke and to build on that joke rather than jump like just to that next gag too quickly, like it's absolutely brilliant.
I was so disappointed in myself because during this entire scene, when I should be laughing, I was stuck on wondering why a hypnotized assassin would try to flee. Because the doctor, like, he's trying to kill Norberg and then he gets caught and then he flees. And I'm like, did they program him to flee as well? Wouldn't hypnotized assassins be sort of expendable? Or wouldn't you just want him to like jump out the window and kill himself? And then did anyone notice that he carjacked a car and there just happened to be a gun in it?
Yeah.
Like that was a little, I don't know. Again, I should be enjoying a doctor going through multiple explosions and then riding a ballistic missile into a fireworks store. Because apparently there are fireworks stores in LA. And all I'm thinking about is like, wait, why didn't he just kill himself? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Well, Drebin breaks into Ludwig's office and finds a note linking Ludwig to a plot against the Queen. But he inadvertently starts a fire that destroys the note and the office. Frank survives an ambush and confronts Ludwig at the reception for the Queen. Frank misinterprets Ludwig's presentation of a musket to the Queen as an attack. He jumps on her and is fired for the faux pas. Afterward, Jane tells Frank that the plan will be executed by a baseball player during the 7th inning stretch at Anaheim Stadium.
Okay, so earlier I complimented the restraint of this movie, that they could like let the joke develop. There was no rush. It's brilliant. We're going to just let it work its way out. Here, it gets a bit chaotic. We get the whole Ludwig break-in, and this is truly machine gun the jokes. It's one right after another. Frank steps into the trash can. There's a fire in the office. It goes up in flames. The damn player piano's going nonstop.
It's so
he drops the vases. He picks up like the picture frame. He's trying to like wave it, and he ends up ruining it. He ends up out on the ledge, and it culminates in him grabbing like one of the dicks off of the statue and the sexual assault with a concrete dildo. And the commissioner says, Frank, what the hell were you doing there in the first place? It's a bit much, but I still laughed.
hats off to the writers on this one, though, because by the time we get to Frank breaking into Ludwig's office, I'm like, certainly they're going to slow down the pace. They can't have that many
Hell
jokes.
no.
They look at every single scene and they're like, what do we got to work with? What can we make happen here? He fucking pulls out a keychain full of credit cards to slide the lock open.
Mm-hmm.
Who thinks of that, right? It's a cheap gag, but I'm laughing because the sheer number of jokes they put on screen, having to find a way to wedge a gag into every minute, it's absolutely insane. And so I looked it up. Turns out there's a gag every 10 seconds in this movie. That's got to be absolutely exhausting for the writers.
Well, yeah. And I mean, and I did some research on the movie and found out that the directors were like, we need to film everything like 40 times in order to make sure that we're getting these jokes exactly right. And so the actors talked about how they loved working together. They thought that the movie was really funny, but that it was an absolutely miserable filming process because they're like, not only are these jokes like kind of dumb just on their face, when you deliver them for the 30th to 40th time, like it's just absolutely unbearable.
Maybe that's what actually helped Leslie Nielsen. He's like, they're like, do a deadpan. He's like, oh, no problem.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for the 30th fucking time.
Well, but guys, like this movie helped connect something very important from my childhood. So I told y'all I didn't really remember having seen this as a kid, and it isn't something that was like in our wheelhouse, like that we watched as like a friendship group. This wasn't something that we put on all the time, but somehow, what?
A friendship group?
Well, that's what it's called, your friendship group.
What?
What do you call it?
Like,
what would you call your group of friends?
My friends.
Okay, fine. I'll redo it. Whatever.
No, hell no.
Y'all are so judgmental tonight.
Your friendship
I just
group.
never heard friendship group.
I
Like
thought
my
it was like some
friendship group.
church thing where you got to meet with your
That's
friend
your youth group. I'm not talking about the youth group.
Okay.
Okay, so should I redo it?
You're out of my friend group. Gene, you're in my friend group.
No, friendship group.
You wish. Y'all wish y'all could have been in my friendship group growing up. But my friends and I, which you both are not one of right now, we used to like quote shit from movies when we were in our like late elementary school years. And I remember we used to always say, I can't hear you. Don't fire the gun while you're talking. And you know how you just say shit when you're a kid? Like you don't really know what it's from, but you think it's funny because your friends think it funny. Well, I had no idea where this came from. And so I'm watching this movie, minding my own business. And then we get to the slaughterhouse scene. And then this line gets said. And I went, holy shit, like a total revelation. All these things from my childhood converged. And it was pretty wonderful.
That scene is amazing, and it sets up some of the funniest fucking dialogue I've ever read, heard, seen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try to get through this without laughing, but Frank is shot at after Jane sends him to this like factory, and he confronts Jane and Ludwig at the reception for the Queen. So he walks in, and Ludwig says, Drebin, and Jane says, Frank. He says, you're both right. Surprised to see me, Mr. Ludwig? And Ludwig says, this is not the time or place to talk. And Frank says, it's way past the time we talked. The gloves are off. I'm playing hardball. It's 4th and 15, and you're looking at a full court press. And Ludwig says, Mr. Drebin, if you have evidence, then use it. If not, I'm warning you, get off my back, or it will cost you dearly. Then Jane says, Frank, what's wrong? He says, a lot of things, sweetie pie. A meeting that turned into a peekaboo session with bullets set up by someone who's been playing me like a violin. And she says, funny face, what are you talking about? My stockyard meeting, Butterwings. Don't you remember setting that up? And she says, Mr. Ludwig said you'd called it off. Believe me. He says, thumb me another one, shooky lumps. She says, Frank, it's the truth. And then he hits her with, cops and women don't mix, like eating a spoonful of Drano. It'll clean you out, but it'll leave you hollow inside. What the fuck? I mean, that is Oscar-worthy writing.
It's so fantastic. It's not the vodka talking. It's a funny line. Very funny line.
Frank takes the place of the home plate umpire and frisks the players for weapons. When Ludwig activates his sleeper, Reggie Jackson, Frank tackles the player who slips his grasp during a bench-clearing brawl. Ludwig holds Jane at gunpoint while Jackson takes aim at the Queen. Frank misses Jackson with a cufflink dart, but hits a large woman on the upper deck. The woman falls over the railing and lands on Jackson, incapacitating him and saving the Queen's life.
So we've talked about a lot of jokes in this movie, but one of the funniest gags is this whole setup. Like, such a stupid premise, like the ridiculousness of the Queen being at a baseball game. And I think they totally milk it for all it's worth, from her getting a hot dog to that stupid curveball she throws to how tiny and short she is compared to everyone around her. It's really funny. And in any other movie, even a comedy, they would have made it where the Queen was there like for like a banquet or a charity or something like that. But no, this movie has her there for an American baseball game.
And again, the way they make creative use of each of these environments, it's so much fun. They took the baseball stadium and they turned it into a playground. The standout moment for me, though, much like an American Werewolf in London, was the movie within the movie, which was that blooper reel that was playing before the first pitch. It looks totally legit. It's just like baseball players running into each other. I thought it might have been actual footage from actual baseball games. And then suddenly this car pops out and hits the second baseman. A tiger's pouncing on a base runner. And then it just starts getting progressively ridiculous to like an outfielder running into the wall and his head flies off. Minus the insufferable Randy Newman montage, this entire part of the movie is gold.
Oh, I can't believe I'm going to say this. That Randy Newman song has never been more appropriate. I love LA. It's perfect for this montage. And what makes it for me is the absolute horror on Dick Enberg's face as Mel Allen gives his gleeful, his little trademark. How about that? It works so well when you get to see the shock of the characters around them.
Yeah, I mean, and I like that this whole section feels like almost like a movie within a movie, because from the very first scene with the national anthem rewrite, I mean, it's absolutely hilarious. The lyrics are so stupid, but they feel like Leslie Nielsen like makes them up on the spot. And my favorite is with so much conviction when he sings "Lots of bombs in the air," and then like the cops, they don't want to be disrespectful, so they just come on the field and they're like inching toward him with like every single verse. I couldn't stop smiling, even though it makes no sense why, because I hate this kind of humor. I hate dumb humor like this, but when Leslie Nielsen's doing it, it just works.
Totally agree.
Well, Frank shoots Ludwig with a cufflink dart, causing him to fall over the side of the stadium. Ludwig is struck by a passing bus, run over by a steamroller, and trampled by the USC marching band. Some of the band members step on Ludwig's beeper, triggering Jane to attempt to kill Frank with Ludwig's gun. Frank breaks Jane's hypnotized state by openly professing his feelings for her and giving her an engagement ring. A recovered Norberg congratulates him until Frank inadvertently pushes Norberg's wheelchair down the stadium stairs and launches him onto the field.
The 80s were such a simple time where comedy could solve all of humanity's problems. Jane, she's now been activated. She's going to kill Frank. You know, I don't know why they didn't kill Frank earlier on. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But Frank, he manages to break the hypnosis with the love conquers all speech. And it works. We get the Jews and the Arabs there embracing. A mailman is hugging a dog. Kurt Gowdy and Jim Palmer are hugging each other. And they say, I'm sorry, I yelled at you. World peace was only one declaration of love away.
Dude, it makes me so sad to consider like how relatively carefree we were in 1988. Like even with real problems in the world, it's not like the world was free of problems in 88. It fucking sucked. I mean, we're in the Cold War. You know, there's a recession. I mean, things were not awesome. I always thought that the 80s seemed fun because I was a kid then. So I didn't have a lot of worries because I didn't have bills or fucking kids to raise or anything. I was just kind of like now. But you can tell by the mood of movies that were coming out around this time, like Naked Gun, people were just more open to a simple laugh and being optimistic. Even though shit was bad, they were still remaining carefree.
What I do like about the end of this movie, they can't help themselves but to get in one last joke montage. And so you get it with Ludwig and that dummy body flailing over the side, which they didn't try to make look real. It reminded me so much of in Monster Squad when they blow up the Wolfman and it's just a giant pillow with some feathers on it. Like, it's just ridiculous. And then the sound effect of him being squished by the roller and then the marching band comes in, all of it works. But the reason why again, I laughed out loud because again, I'm just kind of smiling, is when the line is delivered with, oh, my father went exactly the same way. Like, it just turns me into a person that I don't understand because I am not this person laughing out loud at jokes like this, but their jokes are so ridiculous. You can't help yourself.
Yeah, the same as there is an art to making something look realistic and believable, there's just as much of an art as making something on screen look funny. Like, you can roll a wheelchair down an aisle and then have a dummy fly off of a railing, and it could just happen with like the dummy just kind of falling off. The wheelchair could go at a certain speed. It's not necessarily funny. Just showing me that is not funny. You got to make it amazing. And just like the scene with Ludwig dying, the scene with Norberg getting flipped over the railing, it's a thing of beauty. I mean, that dummy goes like a good 20 feet up in the air. It's fucking great.
Fantastic.
Well, now is the time in the podcast where we give our wipe scores for The Naked Gun from the files of Police Squad. Our wipe score tells you how many wipes the movie takes to get off your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It's an Enrico Palazzo Star-Spangled Banner. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster. It is getting caught in the gears of a combine or having your nuts bitten off by a Laplander. Most of this movie does not make sense. Like, why would a sensory-induced assassin try to escape? Why is Police Squad in charge of the Queen's security? Why is a dock owner involved in assassinations? And yes, it is hammy as hell, but you have to respect the sheer volume of jokes, the commitment to the jokes, and how memorable the jokes were. When Frank and his captain are driving by the San Onofre power station, and Frank looks over at those 2 domes and he says, "Everywhere I look, something reminds me of her." I remembered that joke 33 years later, like it was yesterday. And to have that many jokes and have that staying power, this is a brilliant comedy. Not the best comedy, but definitely brilliant. Not perfect, but a lot of fun. It's 1.5 wipes.
Yeah, I have to say, I really enjoyed this movie, and I was going to give it 2 wipes, but after kind of going through it with you guys, like, I love this movie so much more than I thought I did. So I'm going to call an audible here, and I'm going to change my score a little bit up. I think Frank is an absolutely phenomenal character. He's got such longevity. He's so funny. Leslie Nielsen is so good. Nobody else could have played him. There are some actual funny moments in this movie that made me laugh out loud. It made me love it. There's enough smart gags to balance out the really dumb ones, but I do think there are far too many, right? I think if they had edited it some, this could have been a perfect comedy. But the way it is, I'm saying it's not 2 wipes. I'm going to twinsy with Gene tonight, and I'm going to go 1.5.
Ash, thank you. I'm glad. I'm glad because you two were a bit of the Debbie Downers when we first were talking about this offline. Oh, I didn't think it was that funny. Me, I love this movie. Leslie Nielsen, he perfectly embodies Frank Drebin. The deadpan seriousness of a serious actor, it's essential to make these one-liners work. This movie is much funnier than the sum of its parts. And it's a quality film that has lasted in all of our memory this many years later. This is a great movie. This is a 1-wipe film.
All right, with Big D's 1 wipe and the twin scores of 1.5 wipes for me and Ash, that gives us a average wipe score of 1.3 repeating for The Naked Gun from the files of Police Squad.
So, Gene, with a score of 1.33 repeating wipes, that now ties us in the 64 spot with a bunch of movies. The Breakfast Club, Shawshank Redemption, The Matrix, Big Trouble in Little China, The Last Action Hero, Lethal Weapon, Office Space, Scream, and The Sure Thing.
Well, I'd say that's an excellent score for a 33-year-old comedy. And Joe, I hope you're pleased with it. Big D, we got a couple voicemails this week. Which one do you want to start out with?
So, Gene, we're going to start with one of our listeners from Ash's hometown. Not hometown, but where she lives now, of Houston. It's from Big Al, and he wants to talk about our recent podcast review of American Werewolf in London.
Hi, guys. Alex calling from Houston. Just listened to American Werewolf in London and loved it. But I had a couple of questions for you. Can someone please make Gene listen to Warren Zevon's 1976 hit, Lawyers, Gun, and Money? I think you'd like it. It's pretty good. And then my other question is, does anyone think that David bangs the other wolves in the London Zoo? And do you think David is, as a werewolf, that he gains some powers while in human form that make women attracted to him? It would kind of explain why Nurse Alex hooked up with him. Anyway, keep up being awesome. Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay, so I thought about this on my ride home as I was listening to Big Al. As ridiculous as his idea sounds, I think there is something we have to consider, because you remember they're talking on the walk as they're going into the town about how they're both failing at love. They're not getting really any lady friends. All of a sudden, he becomes a werewolf. You have multiple nurses talking about his penis. He then gets taken in, and we joked about the fact that why does she love him so much? There might be some animal attraction that's part of becoming a werewolf.
Your revisionist history doesn't ring quite true with me, Big D, because we didn't joke about the fact of why does she love him so much. You said, I think the British are ugly.
No.
That's what I heard.
No, lies.
I gotta go with Gene on this one. I mean, I think that is what you said, and I don't think he necessarily got any special wolfy powers. I think it's just like, did you see the other people in that hospital? It was like kids and like ugly older people. So
So you're also voting for
not
the British.
because they're
Yes.
British. The nurses aren't ugly, just the patients.
I like that Ash is like, they're not ugly because they're British.
No.
They're just British and happen to be all ugly.
No, I don't think Nurse what's her name is ugly.
Price.
Nurse Price. I don't think. I mean, David's hot.
He's
got
hot.
BDE. He's got big dick energy.
He's got wolf dick energy. That's why he's going to be an animal in bed. I think I got to agree with you, the Big Al. I think there was some courtship going on, and I think maybe part 3, if we want to revisit it, he impregnated the wolves. And who knows what happens?
As for Warren Zevon, listen, I own Warren Zevon on vinyl, and that might actually be why I don't like his music, because the first album of his I bought because the King Bee is crazy about Warren Zevon, and he was like, "Hey, you should get into him." So I went out and I bought Bad Luck Streak and Dancing School, which I've since discovered from listener Sam Perry that it is his worst album, like, of all time. So maybe by listening to that, it just tarnished everything after that. But Lawyers, Guns, and Money, I mean, for you guys who aren't familiar with Warren Zevon, he's like basically stuck in like South America. I think he's in Honduras or something like that. And he's like, send me lawyers, drugs, and money. Like, shit's getting really bad or whatever. It's the premise of the song isn't bad. He's just a shitty, he's like a rock and roll Randy Newman. It's just an old white guy like playing a piano and a guitar. And you're just like, yeah, like, give me something catchy, something poppy. And when you consider that Warren Zevon and Prince have existed on the same planet,
yeah,
you can't listen to Warren Zevon. I'm sorry. It's terrible.
Okay, so we're going to stay in the great Lone Star state of Texas.
Yes.
As we get a phone call from Dusty, who wants us to do Blood In and Blood Out.
What's up, guys? Dusty from Texas. Been listening since 2016. You guys helped me get through horrible holidays and great holidays. I have a question concerning a movie I've been thinking about commissioning. Being of Mexican descent and being in the area that I'm located in the South, a movie growing up that was constantly on everybody's mind was Blood In, Blood Out, Bound by Honor. I've never heard you guys mention anything about it. It is a long one. It's over 3 hours long. But originally, I believe the budget was $35. It only made $4 million back in theaters, but it is synonymous with Mexican culture. I love it. On the first watch, you watch it because it's a wonderful movie. It's cool. It's got a cool story. And then after the second or third viewing, you get into quoting the lines and using it as funny tidbits here and there. Again, just seeing if there was a limit to time as far as like movies you are willing to watch for commissions, and just trying to see if we can get that one going. I know there's a long waiting list, but I think it would be a film that would be awesome to hear you guys tear apart. Anyway, happy holidays, or if this is on the new year before you hear this, happy new year.
Well, Dusty, happy new year. And as a gift from one of our listeners, Paul P., he has already commissioned Blood In, Blood Out. It will be released on May 24th, so you can send some good karma his way.
Yeah, this is Benjamin Bratt. I know this movie.
You do, yes.
It's this whole thing about like you got to kill somebody, get in a gang, and you can only leave a gang unless you're killed.
That's the fucking way we get Shat the movies. You got to fucking get jumped in. You want to come in?
I was not jumped in.
You
I just
were.
had to get drunk on YouTube.
No, you were jumped in by the listeners. You survived, and now you're part of the posse. You're part of the gang.
That's true. I get hazed the fuck out of me by the listeners.
And now you're hardened. Blood In, Blood Out. You're fucking one of us.
I was hardened. I'm sorry to ruin the whole illusion here, but I was hardened before I joined the podcast. That's why I didn't care about the hazing.
As the childhood victim of an attack by Las Victorias Locos, I'm very excited about watching this movie. I'm sure it'll bring up some fantastic memories.
I want to hear this story.
It's the Crazy Victors or whatever they're called.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah. I'm excited to hear.
Stay tuned.
But Gene, as much as I want to hear about you getting your ass beat by a bunch of Mexicans, next week's movie excites me even more.
You have to go back. That cannot be the transition.
What? No, that's an accurate retelling.
Yeah.
But
Los
it's a terrible
Victorias Locos.
transition.
What do you think? They're white guys? No.
Well, no, but I don't know.
No, I'm excited to hear
Was it
about
on the steps of that apartment complex where you used to play
Listen,
the game?
This is what drove Gene to take some kind of self-defense courses, which led him to Krav Maga, which led him to level 4. That's why he is who he is today. It's because of La Victorias La Locos or whatever.
Yeah, now I feel prepared to take on entire street gangs.
Yes. But next week, folks, I got to tell you, I haven't been this excited in quite a long time. In deep space, the crew of the commercial starship Nostromo is awakened from their cryosleep capsules halfway through their journey home to investigate a distress call from an alien vessel. The terror begins when the crew encounters a nest of eggs inside an alien ship. An organism from inside an egg leaps out and attaches itself to one of the crew, causing him to fall into a coma. This was commissioned by, I don't know, Steve.
Hot Sauce Steve.
Steve W. Have you guys ever heard of him?
Hot Sauce Steve, yeah.
I know who it is. This is one of our prolific commissioners, Steve W., who recently beat me in fantasy football. It was a terrible championship game. I let him down. But this came out in 1979, folks, directed by Ridley Scott. It had a budget of $11 million, and it is a classic film.
Well, thank you, Hot Sauce Steve, and thank you, Joe, for commissioning your films, and thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. You can email us, host@shatthemovies.com, or leave us a voicemail at 914-719-SHAT. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all that information by visiting our website, shatthemovies.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find that information on our website, shatontv.com. Wherever fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes or Spotify, please leave us a review. That helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D and Ash, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next week for the following movie.
Still with us, Brett?
Right.
Yeah. He's dead. Anybody ever tell you look dead?
Intercepted a transmission of unknown origin.
What kind of a transmission?
SOS.
Human.
Ash, can you see this?
I've never seen anything like it. Moving on to second position. We've got this far, we must go on. We have to go on.
It doesn't look like an SOS. It looks like a warning.
Seems to have life. Wait a minute, there's movement.
What the hell is that?
You still don't understand what you're dealing with, do you? Perfect organism.
The emergency disrupt system is now activated. The ship will detonate in T-minus